side. And the light. What will you become?
Red Entertainment, what's up guys? My name is Akasan.
Hey, Supergirls, DC-san.
And so, Rogue One has come out, and all is said and done. It premiered over the weekend in both Japan and across the world, pretty much. A lot of people went to go see it. It's breaking records, majorly breaking records. And, you know, it was a throwback to, overall, I would say, unanimously, everybody can agree that Rogue One essentially gave the Star Wars, a lot of older school Star Wars fans, the nostalgic sort of recreation that they were looking for.
Yes.
But
it felt like a Star Wars movie, yet it was also very different.
Right. Was it very different, but was it good? Was it good, and was it better to embrace the past, the nostalgia of the past, than the energy of the future in The Force Awakens? So I put out a poll a little while ago to the Red Dreaded Nation on Twitter, asking, you know, I personally felt that The Force Awakens was actually better than Rogue One, but I'm not I am not a hardcore Star Wars fan. I became a Star Wars fan because of The Force Awakens and just seeing where they were going.
But you know what? That's really cool, because you know what that says? Whether you watched or enjoyed the original versions, 1 through 6, you watching Rogue One and enjoying it is great, but watching The Force Awakens, and it's like, hey, I'm actually more interested in it, it means they're starting to do a good job of getting new fans.
Well, and I think that's why I feel like The Force Awakens was actually successful to me, because going back and watching the original, the first time I ever watched the Star Wars trilogy, sometime when I was in high school, I think, and it was the remakes or
the first or either the second.
Where like they put
additions.
Chewbacca basically in there, and they put Chewbacca in there instead of the Han Solo's bounty hunter kind of guy or whatever. Like Han Solo has this conversation with a bounty hunter, and they replaced him with Chewbacca. That remaster. So when they put in right before the prequels, I believe. And so, but for me, I was just like, all right, whatever. And then for me, Phantom Menace, I liked it a lot, but that was mainly because of Darth Maul and the lightsaber battles. So
for you Star Wars fans out there, yes, you heard that correctly. Because there's a lot of people that don't like the first one because they feel like there's a lot of gripes.
Well, I know that, and for good reason. And for good reason, there should be a lot of gripes. But for me, I was like, fast forward, let's get. Oh my God, this is a dope ass battle like that. I was always about Darth Maul. However, so I personally felt The Force Awakens was better than Rogue One, and I came out of The Force Awakens a lot more excited about the Star Wars franchise. People on my Twitter voted that The Force Awakens got 37% and The Phantom Menace 15%.
I'm not surprised.
And Rogue One got a whopping 48% here. And that was out of 256 votes there on the Red Dreaded Nation on my Twitter. Follow me at Akasan. So what I thought I'd do is, between you and me, old school Star Wars fan versus fairly newer to the future and beyond type of Star Wars fan, gotta just go down the notes. We'll just break it down by 4 different categories.
Okay.
Story, visual, music, and the acting, character development, things like that. And let's find out what movie was better. Okay, go ahead.
A lot of things that happened in both movies were very entertaining, very shocking. It had what it needed to do, but the question we're going to go on, a couple of questions we're going on now is, story-wise, did it do its job as telling a good story?
I guess that's a good, like for me, I think a good story overall does it leave an impression with you? Like
whether it be positive or negative.
Yeah.
And when I say that positive or negative, I do mean in the light of the story is very dark, so it did its job in making
right.
you
It made you
heavy.
feel something.
I don't mean
right.
negative as that was a bad movie. I don't mean that.
It's kind of funny but it is kind of funny because I'm almost contradicting myself consciously because I personally thought Suicide Squad was a great movie as a kind of fan of what they were going for, kind of what they were going for. But fans. I think not even because even fans would say that's a pretty poor movie, Suicide Squad. But for whatever the end result was, I was still very entertained at the end of that movie.
I enjoyed it. For whatever reason, people dislike parts of it or whatever. I thought it was a good, fun movie. I wasn't looking at going in for an Oscar-winning action movie.
Okay, but this is Star Wars, so, and I think that goes on just like some of the scrutiny movies like Batman v Superman or a Jurassic Park movie, anything that has a certain level. I'm just saying.
I hadn't thought about that being on the list. It's like, he's got a point because there's some things that happen.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, anything that's on a particular level where it's expected to be good. You're not expected to make a bad movie, especially you can make a Star Wars. You could have somebody running around as Yoda for 40 minutes, and that movie would still make millions of dollars.
Just because one, it's got a character that people recognize.
But was the story bad? I mean, like a lot of people say, there's the Phantom Menace syndrome. What happened was when the Phantom Menace first came out, people was going crazy over that movie, and people but then gradually
they complained about things like Jar Jar.
Right.
Some people didn't like the pod racing. I actually liked it because I liked the way the engine sounded when they started up.
Right.
I'm a car freak, so I like that. And that, unfortunately, Qui-Gon Jinn left little to no impression. Yeah. If you look at almost every Jedi,
I get it.
There's an impression on you. Qui-Gon, and people are like, which is sad because Liam Neeson is a damn good actor.
So what do we think about Rogue One here? Rogue One, the story itself.
For me, coming from way back when, because it came out like in '77, and I went and saw it years after that because I wasn't born yet, when they first came out. But the thing is, I enjoyed the movies for what they were. Looking at Rogue One, I enjoyed it because it did feel like I was watching something that would lead up to, in story-wise, 4, 5, and 6, or it's in the exact same time period. So that nostalgia, they did a good job of doing it.
Right.
Story-wise, with the characters, they did a good job with that because it didn't matter. Is this spoiler-free?
No, at this point, if
it's okay.
Yeah, you can't compare it without saying what happens.
Okay, so just letting you know from this point on.
Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. We've said it 3 times. Okay, so I like that when you look at it, it's coming from the opposite side.
Okay.
And not just coming from the opposite side. It's coming from someone.
Right.
Yeah, but in the opposite direction. That person didn't want that job.
Okay.
Because he understood what they were using his knowledge for.
Got it.
He was against it.
Got it.
But he basically picked the lesser of two evils. If I do this, I need to make sure my family's okay. It's a horrible thing, but I need to put a fail-safe into it.
I would say I'm giving Rogue One a 2 out of 5.
Why so?
Well, basically because I felt like the problem with doing prequels and somewhat in-betweens is the fact that you already know how this chapter is going to end in some form or fashion. The main point, you know that they're getting the plans for the Death Star. In fact, I actually thought it was well, that's a whole nother thing about how many people died. Like they mention it later in the movies.
Yeah.
That was actually another plan. But that in itself is kind of a little irky for me. Is the fact that they keep on. There's mirrors and paradoxes about that. But for me, I just felt like the way they were building, there wasn't enough drive in the story that for the most part, a lot of it just felt very flat, and I was semi-bored most of the acts of the movie. It wasn't until that last third act of the movie that I'm like, yeah, let's go, let's get into it. So I, as someone who does, when you're focusing on just story itself, I do feel like if the only time you really actually get kind of excited in the movie a lot is when there's a lot of action going on, then that also means that the story has,
not pulling
the story has fallen and the story has failed. Compared to The Dark Knight, you're thoroughly riding this out a lot, and you're really like just little nods of whatever the character is doing, or when Gordon reveals himself as being still alive, you're just like, it's because all of that really got you. Or when you thought he died, you're like, oh snap, like it actually happens. And so when it comes to that point of where Batman is chasing the Joker during that action scene, you're just like, come on dude, you're like, you forget how much of the story helped you enjoy this action scene. Whereas with Rogue One, I just kind of got into it because everybody started showing up, the Rebel squad started showing up, but only because I remember those frog-looking things from the earlier movies, or, well, the...
Kind of look like fish?
Yeah, the fish frog things, and you're like, oh shit, it's a trap guy. Yeah. Like, for me, that's why I got excited, because I was like, my nostalgia was kicking in, but not because of the actual story itself. I felt that it just was very flat. It
was a different Admiral, but I do understand what you mean as far as that nod. For me, the reason I liked it is because, one, I'm giving it 3.5. I want to give it 4, but there's a reason I don't. There's a reason why I'm like borderline 3.5 and 4. I'll explain in a second. So I like that it started from the opposite side. You didn't know if the person was good or bad, and where they're going with it. So it left a little mystery in the beginning. I like that.
Yeah, okay.
I will say when they introduced Captain Ando, I think it's his name.
Yeah.
The thing that I liked about that is he's supposed to be on the side of good, yet he's doing some really dark, shady things. So it's showing you that in the time of war, no side is completely without fault.
I just wish they focused more on that, or they made it make a little more sense, and in some like it when those things were happening and when those shades of gray were going on, half the time I just didn't really get it or care exactly why is he doing this, or why is he kind of doing these, like, why does he need to, I know why he feels like he needs to take out Homegirl's dad. I just didn't really care too much. Like,
for me, I understood why he took out the first guy. I didn't like it. I know they're setting that up for his character to give him a different shade.
Right.
But it's also because he has information that he's afraid can get out to someone else. So unfortunately, he's making.
See, for me, I was like, yeah, I didn't even catch that fully.
It's horrible, but it's almost like a mercy kill, because instead of having him tortured, beaten, shot, or whatever by the stormtroopers, well, he takes him out.
I get it.
Hard call, horrible, but it was necessary for his character.
I just think if they honed in a little bit more, and I know there were rewrites with the story, it would have done, if they just spent more time on it, little things like that would have made more sense. Like, oh damn.
Because when it first happened, it's like, yeah, but I kind of understand that. And part of the reason, because from watching movies and other stuff, you follow it.
So sometimes you need to fill in those blanks, so to speak.
The part with her father, the part that felt somewhat weak to me is he, outside of him working for them after his wife passed, they shot her down, which is rough, and he's going to save his daughter's life. The story that happens between her and Saw is never seen.
Right.
That's one of the minus points I have to give it, because it's like you hear it, but even in exposition, there isn't enough there.
Right.
It's like, what happened? And it's cut, because there's even lines that's in the trailer that they use. Now, some of that's used for marketing, I would have thought, but it's not in the movie at all.
And the last thing I will say about that
it's not even there.
What I will say about that with Rogue One, on top of that, is the story between Aso and her father and such. I would have actually liked to have seen her father working on some of that, like see some of the hell that he was going through because it just felt like it fell flat. It felt like
they captured him, and that was it.
Exactly.
And it's fine. You don't know if he's living or dead, and then as the story starts to unfold, it's like, oh, he's still alive. He's at this secret base, but still, that's it.
So now, The Force Awakens. Now, this is a tricky one for a lot of people, and I know, and I see both sides, because the old school fans are really upset, sometimes fairly upset, that it copied A New Hope, basically. The good amount of, for me, I would probably give it. I would give A New Hope. I mean, The Force Awakens. I'm giving the Force Awakens story a 4, and I know that's fairly high, and I'm going to explain that. For me personally, in short, same with you, but for me personally, I felt like the Force Awakens was a situation with J.J. Abrams and everybody, when you're trying to relaunch, and this was, don't get me wrong, this was indeed a relaunch here of the franchise. You gotta play some of it safe. You just have to.
And because the producers want that, and because the director wants to make sure that it makes up that money.
But you gotta make sure it works well, and then try to give more to people, to get people excited. I know personally, I don't remember A New Hope at all. I didn't remember. When I saw the Force Awakens, I didn't catch the thing. The only thing that was kind of like similar to me was like, wait, is this the same thing as the Death Star? Like, they got to take it down the same way? But everything else, and then after that, I rewatched all the Star Wars movies because I was amped again. So I rewatched them like, god damn. Oh shit, this is just like The Force Awakens. It's just a shorter version of A New Hope in The Force Awakens. That first half of it. The rest of it, though, the way it's going, expands more upon the point I like about Star Wars, and that is the story of the Skywalkers, the Anakin with Kylo as well, and it gets me really interested in there's something darker than the Sith out there. Sorry, it's been a long day, guys. I'm tired. And the Jedi clans, and it made me go out and research more about what the hell happened. And so that's why I particularly like what they did with The Force Awakens in the story, because it makes me want to expand more upon this legacy of these galactic samurai, basically.
For Rogue One, one more small point. What I liked is that it introduced new characters, whether they will continue or not continue in the story. I think they did a decent job of introducing them.
Okay.
For The Force Awakens, I enjoyed it. I gave it a 4. I'm looking at it as Rogue One and Force Awakens tied for 3.54, and reason being because of a couple points. One, Force Awakens, the point I didn't like was the Starkiller base basically got blown up the exact same way as the Death Star. I was like, nah,
as almost
not
all of them
cool.
tend to, yeah.
But I, like you mentioned before, I also understand because you need to have something that's familiar yet different. So this being the building point, I understand why there are similarities and things. It's easy marketing.
Right.
We may not like it as a whole, but it's what works. And if it works, that's what gets us what we do want.
And here's the
later installments.
Here's the overall thing. People would claim, people complain that The Force Awakens was too much like A New Hope or too familiar. But if it was too different, then they would be like, this doesn't feel like the Star Wars I know.
Right.
So in my situation, but my thing is like, isn't that what Rogue One was exactly that, playing to what was familiar and banking on the nostalgia without making things too different, except it being a bit more darker.
Yeah. So, one thing I liked about it is that Rogue One, to be clear, is that it was a darker story.
Yeah, at this point I did like
it wasn't focused on Jedi and Sith.
Right. For me, that was
I enjoyed that.
For me, that was a bit of a bummer, but I understood because the story wasn't asking for the Jedi. But I would have liked to have seen the fall of the Jedi Empire a little bit more. I mean, I know it happened in the Revenge of the Sith, but it would have been kind of cool to get some. But I know it wasn't supposed to be a Jedi story. Moving on, visuals. Okay, visuals is very interesting for me because I would rank. It's a little hard though because I only saw it in MX 4D, so it's 3D, so sometimes the visuals tend to take a hit when you watch a movie in 3D.
The 4D MX that's here, the location we saw it in, the screen itself on the far left and the far right was actually quite dark.
Yeah.
Seeing it in regular 3D or in 2D, which I have, is actually much cleaner, much crisper.
I will give, just banking on the fact that I'm putting my trust in the director because I know what Godzilla looked like and I know what I saw in the trailers.
Rogue One visual?
Yeah, Rogue One visuals. I'm giving a top 5 mainly because I'm just giving my kind of biased in the fact that I know the dude really focuses on visual stuff. I've seen Godzilla, I've seen it on my 4K television, and he really stands out. So I'm just going to assume that Rogue One looked amazing in IMAX.
It does look amazing in IMAX.
The shot,
I've seen it in IMAX.
The shot locations, but even in 3D, the shot locations, the certain points, there wasn't anything that I ever thought that was underwhelming.
Out of place.
No, not at all. And then when the sandstorm happened after the Jeddah was blown up, that was amazing.
That was cool.
There was nothing that really felt out of place. My only small nitpick was when Darth Vader had his final scene here, and he was just tearing shit up. Now again, this is because
it would have been cool to see a little more Darth Vader. That's another small gripe.
But again, I would have done the more panning shaky cam style. When he was tossing bodies, I would have liked the camera track as well, just to really show how damn cool. Because sometimes, and we talked about this before, as cool as a character Darth Vader is, and as cool as he looks like in the comics, and as cool as he is in Sith lore, shot selection is everything. And he looked really corny sometimes, having his conversation with the Admiral guy or whatever, when he was just kind of walking around and you just see a dude in a helmet nodding. Like certain location, a shot selection means everything. And so even though that scene was badass the first time around seeing it, if you don't shoot it a particular way to make Darth Vader look like this huge evil beast, like a demon coming through the door, I would have done it that way.
So he didn't seem as imposing to you.
Nah, not at all. That one shot was great where he was coming breathing, you see the lightsaber come through, but then the rest of it kind of looked very much cosplay-ish.
Really?
Just when they're closing the door and you see him moving around in the background with the lightsaber, it wasn't as like beastly menacing as my image of Darth Vader should be.
For me, I felt the opposite. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because, for me, he seemed menacing because he was straightforward and short with everybody. Didn't matter what they did. It was like, boom, you're gone. Boom, you're gone. Boom, you're gone. Like he's anticipating every single thing they do. No move is exaggerated, but also he was quick enough with reactions, but also slow enough to fit the next movie. And it's like, okay, I see how they did that.
Yeah, right. And I figured, I also kind of was thinking about that myself. I was like, he's not really as cool or as fast as I would want him to be, but then if you're trying to put him together with A New Hope, then it's like, if he was too fast and too ninja quick or whatever, they'd be like, what the fuck happened to you when you fought Obi? So I get it. At this point, I get it.
But I will say, if they're going to add anything to it, like say from 8, if there's some type of backstory in between that, say he gets damaged or he gets injured, and that's why he's not so quick and moving around so much when he fights Obi-Wan. Then I can understand that.
The Force Awakens, I will probably just give a 4. I'll give it a 4.5, mainly because, just like the story, I think J.J. Abrams played it very safe with, I think he actually had better shot selections in his Star Trek franchise, the first 2 movies he did with Star Trek. Okay. And especially Into Darkness and
the lens flare, using it appropriately in certain scenes.
But that was a little too much, right.
More effect
in Star Wars, yes. Yeah. But I just felt like there wasn't really, with The Force Awakens, I felt like it just wasn't anything that was bad, but there wasn't anything that really stood out. I'm like, God damn, this is the shot right here. Like, there wasn't much that happened in The Force Awakens to really stand out enough to be like, God, dude, they really turned it up a lot. So, and let's not forget with Rogue One, there was also the use of the CG, groundbreaking technology.
The visuals for Rogue One, 2 points. Tarkin. I think Tarkin was done really, really well. To the point where people who didn't realize that that actor had actually passed, when they saw it, they thought it was a real actor, which means they did a really good job of redoing the character. Leia, I would give her a 7.5, 8 out of 10, only because when I watch it, I've watched it in 4 different formats, and still her right eye is a little unnaturally dark in one area, and it's not a lighting thing. I thought it was a lighting thing because of 3D, but I've seen it in 2D, and it's not. It's the only thing that kind of bugs me, but I'm still really happy with what they did because I think it looks great.
Okay.
With The Force Awakens, I give that a 5, mainly because there are parts of it that have that nostalgic feel from the previous movies, but also a step up with things like vehicles, characters. I love BB-8. Like, I can't tell you how much I love that droid. I love him. I have several things in my house that are BB-8 related, mainly because they introduced a character that was handled and used completely different from all the other ones. Okay. How many other droids do you see like that?
Yeah,
so making that technology and making it real, I thought was interesting because he wasn't CG.
Okay, yeah, got it.
The nostalgia of not just the Millennium Falcon, but even landscapes, I thought was interesting because they're using things like old battles to set up the story. So having that
the Star Destroyers,
was badass. I love that. Okay. So I give it a 5. That and looking at how they used the Force in some instances, like Kylo stopping a blaster and stuff, was cool.
Yeah,
I would love it if Darth Vader did something like that. I would love it more because for me, Darth Vader is more menacing.
But I would say a lot of what you're saying banks more on that. That fits more into story and or character development.
Well, not necessarily because if the visuals aren't good, the story falls.
Okay.
Falls flat. And the visuals for me, it also deals with background because background is part of the story.
Fair enough. All right, let's see. Music. This one, I don't really have much to say on it or so. I wouldn't really know how to grade it or anything like that. I mean, I would just say I'm going to give it a 3 of both across the board, just in short, mainly because there wasn't anything that for me stood out with The Force Awakens or Rogue One. And I can't really say that, with Rogue One the music was great or so because it had the iconic theme, but all of them generally had the iconic theme in there.
That's what I did like, that it did have the iconic theme, especially at the ending for both movies, Rogue One and Force Awakens. Unfortunately, Rogue One does not have the opening theme music in the scroll, which
I was okay with that.
I was okay with it, but I to be honest, when I watched it the first time, it threw me a little bit.
I get it.
Oh, that's right. And the font I thought could have been thicker for Rogue One, but that's okay, no big deal. I'm not hating. Music wise, I enjoyed the score for both movies, and as far as theme music that's used in the background for specific scenes, I enjoyed it because it helped move the feeling and the motion of the movie and the story to carry on. So I liked it. I liked the background music. It was cool. It didn't have to be old school.
I really can't. You know what? Actually, now that I think about that, then you did make. I'm giving The Force Awakens a little bit more, only because I felt because of that background music or so. I thought The Force Awakens moved faster, much faster. Rogue One had me semi-bored.
Pace wise, both of them moved really well. Force Awakens moved faster from the second act on. The first act was a bit slow because it was setting things up.
Actually, I changed it again, 3-2 now. So I don't want to give 4 for music for The Force Awakens.
What is it? Rogue One. Rogue One, I liked it because it started off building each place very well. The downside to it, the big complaint I hear, jumping around from planet to planet, almost every, 6? Someone broke it down there, like every 6 to 7 or 6 to 8 minutes, there's a different place. I understand it. It's okay.
Yeah, that is very true.
And Darth Vader's castle has been confirmed to be on Mustafar.
Okay.
Which is where he actually
fell into all of it. All right, acting, character development or so. This one, I wasn't big on here. With Rogue One, I'm giving it a 2. The Force Awakens, I'm giving a 5. Most of the characters I really didn't care about. I didn't care about anybody other than that android. I thought the lead character, the Jane, whatever her name was very bland.
K2 so.
K2 so. Yeah, I thought he was the only interesting one in there.
I liked him because he was like a dark version
Yeah,
of C-3PO.
right. The other ones, I just thought everybody was bland. Forrest Whitaker was just kind of hilarious in some form or fashion. The main girl, I thought she was really just bland. Like I thought she was a very like, I don't know, like they were trying to do something what they had with Rey in The Force Awakens, but just I never really got into her, and I didn't really get into anybody else of the sort. Donnie Yen, okay, I will say Donnie Yen was there. It was kind of cool what he was doing, but I couldn't, I don't know. Toward the end, when they all died, I didn't really care that any of them died except for the robot. I was like, oh shit.
I'm saying 3.5 or 4.5. And I could even argue and say Rogue One, I give it a 4. Starting with Rogue One, my issues were Cassian. I don't know, he didn't feel like he was heavy enough. Like, I understood his thinking and his purpose for doing what he did.
Right.
But I didn't feel as attached to him as I would say Han Solo.
Well, they felt like very 2D a lot of times.
He
like,
felt
here's your plot, roll with it.
He felt somewhat 2D, and it's not technically his fault alone.
Right, I agree.
It's also interaction with others.
Yes.
But Jen, I liked her. Not just because I think she's an attractive lady or anything like that, because she is. But I think she did a really good job at portraying her character. Unfortunately, you're looking at two characters that are fatally flawed. My gripe, story-wise, and with the acting is, the end of the movie, they are on the beach, there could be ships and anything around. They don't even take the time to look. They're just like, screw it, let's just go to the beach.
Yeah.
And then that's it. And I was like, what? The characters that I did like that they introduced were from 4 and on, were Gold Leader and Red Leader. I like how they took them from the older movies and put them here as an homage and build it. Character-wise, I thought that K-2SO and Jin were the best built characters. Then her father, and then Forrest Whitaker and everybody else. Forrest Whitaker, he sounded like Darth Vader when he first used his breathing apparatus.
I did not like. It was so dumb.
Okay, I didn't understand why they did that, but whatever. His character, my frustration with his character, all his scenes were cut.
Yes.
So story-wise, it's like, okay, you've got this fairly battle-worn black guy standing in the background that helps her out, which is fine, and then nothing. Donnie Yen, I loved.
Okay.
Donnie Yen was boss. I wish his character
he stood out.
Have been.
I mean, no, he was good, but I felt like
him and his partner were cool.
They could have made him stand out more in some form or fashion. I don't know what it was, but it just felt like the story didn't really help showcase what they were all about.
Yeah, it was even the exhibition was a bit weak. Where
they gave him a Boba Fett type of feeling, like they were there,
but cooler.
But they you're gonna need an expansion story to really get into the more
Which
Star
would be
Wars
cool.
Rebels. Yeah. All right, let's total it up here. We're running out of time, and let's see what we get. Final total here for Rogue One on my side is 11. I'm giving 11 for Rogue One, and then for let's count 16.5. So, for me, I got 11 for Rogue One and 16.5 for The Force Awakens.
For me, I'm looking at it as 16.5 and 17.5. Rogue One, I really enjoyed Rogue One because it was darker, and I liked the shore troopers, also Scarif troopers. I liked how they looked. They looked functional. Death troopers look cool, but they were like, they're gone. I was pissed that everybody down there died. Had someone survived, I'd be like, okay, that's cool, because it fit the line better. Many people lost their lives for this. No, everybody on that damn line is gone. They're gone.
Right, but that was actually, from what I've been told, the whole thing about many people lost their lives for it was actually for the plans for the Death Star
Second
too.
two.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, Jesus.
But even then, it's like,
okay.
Nothing else. Force Awakens, I enjoyed it. I liked that the hero was Rey and Finn and Poe.
And I thought that was the strongest part about the story. Like, you started really liking these characters.
Yeah,
I'm like, cool.
because you had X-Wings, you had lightsabers, you had blasters, everything.
So if I were to sum it up here, for me, summing it up, Rogue One was interesting. It was a okay movie, a pretty strong movie, a fun movie for somewhat okay 2016 of movies. But The Force Awakens really did something that I think the Star Wars franchise needed, was awaken that franchise to really get people,
especially since there weren't any quote unquote female-led heroes.
Correct.
And they did a good job of doing it.
All right, well, Mr. Carver, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Red Red Nation, stand up, speak up. Let us know what you guys think, how you would rate it, judging with our charts here as well.
Yeah.
If you agree, disagree, let us know below, okay?
Thanks, Super Crew. Appreciate it.
Till next time,
Red Dreaded.
may the Force be with us.
Keep it super.
All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know.